Bonjour les élèves. In these notes, we're going to talk about certain ER verbs that end in G-ER or C-ER. Now, before we get into these rules, let's review the endings that go with regular ER verbs. We already know that when our subject is je, we take off the ER and replace it with the letter E when we want to conjugate an ER verb. But let's also go through and review the rest of our ER verb endings. So if our subject is to, you'll remember the ending is es. If it is il or elle or on, the ending is e. If it's nous, the ending is o and s. For vous, the ending is z. And for il or elle pluriel, we have the silent e and te that we add to the end of our stem. Now, there are a few verbs that have slight changes in their stems before you add those endings. So, for the first category, verbs that end in G-E-R, when you use these in sentences, you'll add an E before the O and S, only in the new form. That's the only change we have to worry about. And we do that because a G followed by an O and S makes a G sound. But we want that G to be a J sound. So we add the E before the O and S in order to keep that soft J sound. So let's take a look at the verb manger, which you'll remember from a while back. We've had that before. Manger remembers to eat. The stem of the verb manger is whatever we have left over without the ER. So we'll have that stem in all of our forms. And then we'll add the regular ER verb ending. So to say I eat, je mange. To say you eat, tu manges. To say he, she, or one eats, il, elle, on mange. To say we eat, this is the part we have to remember to change. We can't just add the O and S here because if we did, it would be pronounced mangon. So we add the letter E before the O and S to help us to remember to pronounce it mangeons. So that is the only difference that we have to remember with verbs that end in G-E-R. The vous form, manger, still with the EZ, and the il and elle plural form would be mange with the E and te. Okay, a couple of other verbs that end in G-E-R. Here's a list of them that might be good for us to have in our notes. The first one, changer, exactly what it looks like, to change. Échanger, to exchange. Corriger, really should have an R on the end here, to correct. We've used that in class often. Déranger, to bother or to disturb. Encourager, to encourage. And then lastly, voyager, which you've seen before, to travel. So when we use all of these verbs, we have to remember that in the new form, add E before the O and S to make it voyageons or encourageons. Now there's another category of verbs, ER verbs, that do the same thing. Verbs that end in CER. In verbs that end in CER, we're going to change the C to say sedeia only in the new form. That's the only change that we have to worry about. And again, we do that to keep the C sounding like an S, like it does in the infinitive. So let's take a look at the verb commencer so that you can see what I mean by this. In the verb commencer, which I don't know that we've seen too often, the verb commencer means to start. Regular ER verb, so say, O, M, and say. That's our stem. You add E to say I'm starting. Tu commences avec ES for you are starting. Il commence. Nous, okay, so this is the part that we have to remember is different. Nous commençons. See, if we didn't add that C, or if we didn't add that sedia, a C followed by the letter O in French is pronounced like a K. We want to pronounce it like a C, like the infinitive. So we add a sedia underneath the C to make that C sound like an S sound. So commençons. Then we have vous commencez, so regular stem, regular Z ending, and then il or elle commence, regular and te. So we just have to remember that new form to add the cedilla before the ONS, and remember we only do that just so that we pronounce that C like an S, like it is in the infinitive. So you might want to highlight that part in your notes right there. Okay, there are, just like verbs that end in GER, a couple of verbs that fit into this category. Most of them are cognate, so they look like what they mean in English. So let's write these down. Placer is to place. Looks just like it, doesn't it? Avancer, to advance or to move forward. Prononcer, to pronounce. We use that in class too. Lancer is the only one that doesn't really look like English. Lancer is to throw. And remplacer is to replace. So we just have to remember with all of these to add that cedilla to the C only in the new form. All the other forms have an E that follow the letter C. So anytime a C is followed by the letter E, it's pronounced like an S anyway. So that's it for those verbs that end in GER or CER. Au revoir les élèves.